Ignite to Impact.
What's stopping you from putting yourself first? In today's conversation, we're going to talk about the myths around putting yourself first, how you can, in fact, change that, and some real strategies to make sure that you're at least number one on your to-do list. Hi, I'm Dr. Geneva, and welcome to Ignite to Impact. I'm so glad you're here, and I look forward to this conversation. You know, I often get a lot of questions from my clients about, how do I take care of myself? How do I put myself first? So I thought it would be a great conversation to have. I remember many times, often in my life, I found myself taking care of everything and everyone. I would be the person that people would come to for advice. I'm the one who's raising the kids and being mom. I'm the one who's the fabulous wife, spouse, best friend. I'm the one who's solving the problems at the workplace, at my job. I'm the one who's hearing from relatives all around the country about different things happening in the family, and the one people call on for advice and help and problem solving. And often I would get overwhelmed about it. I remember this one time when it just seemed like, everything was just coming at me. I was overwhelmed, I was stressed out, and I was complaining about, the things that I wasn't doing or not having or the way I was feeling. So I called my mom, and, that's always such it's always such a blessing to be able to call her and get that good advice. So I call her and I say, Mom, I'm just, I got all these things I'm doing. And I was sharing her with my to-do list and all the calls I was getting from people to help or to do things. And she was listening, as she always did. And she would let me just go on and on and on and on and talk and complain and complain. And when I took a breath and paused, she said to me, well, Gigi, that's my family nickname. She said, you've got to learn how to do both things at the same time. And I said, I don't know what you mean. She said, you're called to serve. She said, that's what you do. She said, but at the same time, you have to take care of yourself. So, sort of that, like chew gum and walk at the same time and all that kind of old time expressions. But she said it can't be an either or proposition. It really needs to be an and, both and, to be able to do those things at the same time. And so, that sent me in my life on a journey of trying to figure out how to do both at the same time and be successful. And that got in my spirit this whole concept of drink while you pour. In other words, that you can pour out and give to others at your workplace, at your job, with your family, and pour, renew, refresh yourself at the same time. And that there was this responsibility that you had to yourself and frankly to others to be able to do that. So it just sent me on this journey of fighting real hard and learning a lot about how to do both at the same time. Drink while you pour. Renew and refresh yourself while you give to others. So that's what I want to share today, what I've learned, what my experience has taught me. So I want to go through some myths about really self-care. And then I want to talk about some ways that you can put yourself first. And then I'll end with some real specific tips. So come on and go with this journey with me. And I see Rolanda has joined us, and she's saying she's on this journey right now. Hey, okay. And how self-care is essential. Well, great, Rolanda. Well, let me tell you, let's start off with the myths first. One of the myths is no one will like me if I say no. Uh-huh. And so, see, part of the strength of the being unselfish myth is that people will like you more if you're not selfish and you give them the attention. And that's almost like saying, if you're, being good will ensure that, you're loved. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't, and they won't love you anymore. Folk will love or like you for who you are, for being who you are, not what you can do for them. And if in fact people do like you only for what you can do for them, that's not a healthy relationship, and you probably don't need them in your life. The second myth is this: giving is my identity. So I was, that was part of the myth I kind of grew up with, because I grew up under this good girl, a good girl cleans her room. A good girl looks out for others. A good girl, da 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 da. And so, and that kind of reinforces this image of this unselfish, all the time person who gives care and thinks of others, being a good girl. And so you get positive strokes for always being the one running around and helping everybody else. So, but it really should be balanced if we want to be, healthy and secure. And if we're thinking about ourselves, and, you run out of energy if you do everything for everybody else. And learning to receive is also part of the gift, and you'll frankly be a better caregiver. So placing yourself in the position of, you don't always have to be that good girl who gives everything, that in fact it should be a two-way street. And then the third myth that I really want to bust is that this thinking that self-care is selfish, that it's the opposite. It's self-care is the opposite of, being selfish, that, and I disagree with it. It really is applying self-care, is really giving that same level of kindness to yourself as you do to your family, your friends, your colleagues. And it's really just about treating yourself the way you treat others. And there's this enormous pressure for us to be so selfish, so, give, that we have to be careful about making sure that we give to ourselves. So I'm really talking about this balance, because if we don't have this balance, we'll really end up feeling perhaps exhausted. Sometimes you feel exhausted, maybe a little resentful. And I know I have been at that place where I actually resented all that I was giving. And that is because I wasn't really giving back to myself. So those are the three myths that I want to start this conversation with, and I want to make sure that we bust. Okay, so let's talk about 5 ways to put yourself first. Okay, the first is, and I always like to start off with this, and that is be true to yourself. This self-awareness piece, that you to thine own self be true, is important. And so I want you to listen to your heart, to your intuition, and do what feels is right for you. So that's really a first step in finding ways to put yourself first. The second is to Commit to yourself. Don't put yourself at the bottom of your to-do list. And again, remember, it's not an either or proposition. You can have both in. So commit to yourself, to your priorities, those things that you think are important. So if you want to, if working out is in fact important to you, put that on the top of your list. Commit to yourself. I remember when as I was coming along in life, working out gave me such energy. It helped clear my mind. It kept the stress down. But I found that I was finding that there were too many things that were getting in the way of me being consistent about working out. And so I had I had to commit to myself that, listen, I'm going to do this no matter what. So I figured out all these strategies and tips, and I joined all these different clubs, and I would put my workout clothes right on the floor next to me in a basket next to my bed, so that as soon as my feet hit the ground, I could put on my things. I tried all these tips and strategies until it became a habit, because I committed to myself. So again, don't put yourself at the bottom of your priority list. A third way that we can put ourselves is become a master at saying no. N-O. Learn to say no to things that aren't important to you, aren't, where they're really not in your best interest, or you really don't have the energy. I remember when a friend of mine, a pretty good friend of mine, was having, this fabulous birthday party celebrating her milestone birthday. And she invited me to come, and it was a plane trip, but I had a ton of things, not only to do, but a couple other commitments, back home. But I just couldn't say no to her. I was, frankly, I was concerned about what she'd think about me, back to that myth of, I ain't going to be liked if I say no. I thought I owed it to her to be there. And I knew that she'd be happier if I were there. And all these things, again, that were other directed. And so I made all kinds of changes. I changed the commitments I had at home. I told other people, that I postponed other events. I brought a plane ticket and got on that plane, and I ain't really a big fan of flying. I put myself through all of this and arrived at this party, this celebration. I was frustrated. I was stressed out, probably from that plane ride. I was all in a tither, but I was there. And you know what? It was a good party. She was happy for a minute. She had so many other friends there, however, and I really didn't get a chance to talk with her, a lot, because there was so much going on. And when I sat back and looked at it, I realized that, I had done all this for someone else. And when I got there, it really wasn't all that. It really wasn't all about that. And I started to think about, well, what could I have done? I could have sent her a fabulous gift, a wonderful note. I could have called and said, listen, I want to be there with you in spirit. Things are happening here. I won't, but guess what? I've got this fabulous trip planned for us that we can do together. And when I thought about it and reflected on it, there were so many other things that I could have done that would have, paid honor and homage to our relationship, but also would have put me first. And I would have been able to say no in a way that was gracious, but still thought about me and her at the same time. So this one is a biggie, learning how to say no. Another way to get to putting ourselves first is to delete guilt. You know what? Life is too short to feel guilty for not being able to make everyone happy. Don't lie or send mixed messages, but, don't feel guilty, because feeling guilty hands our power over to someone else and gives them the leverage to get what they want, but doesn't help us get what we want. And the final thing that I want to say in terms of ways to put ourselves first is to not be afraid to ask for help. you know, um, we're oftentimes the go-to person for everyone else. And so, we feel that, we shouldn't be asking others for advice or for help or what have you. But sometimes, don't we need help, right, Rolanda? Rolanda says, yes, we need help ourselves. So, we don't always have to be the go to person for everything. It perhaps is hard to ask for help for ourselves, but I think if we acknowledge what we're strong and good at and those things that we aren't so good at, that we can learn to ask for help when we need it. And then also, when you do ask for help, it gets you in the practice of receiving with gratitude, which is another bonus for asking for help. So, those are 5 ways that, we can use to step into putting ourselves first. And so, then finally, I'd like to share some tips with you, some things that perhaps you can leave this conversation and go right to, doing. And again, if you want more tips like this, I'd love to, have you get more inspiration and support as you're on your journey to putting yourself first. Join our Extraordinary Women Influencers Facebook group. And that's a place where, inspiration is there for you as you, try to figure out how to put yourself first, how to, be the best that you can be, how you, as you're on this journey of being an extraordinary woman influencer, because in our group, we realize that, drink while you pour is part of our mantra, and that we're always looking for ways to serve others better and at the same time renewing and replenishing ourselves. So in that group, Extraordinary Women Influencers, you can find the inspiration and support to learn how to put yourself first. So here's some tips. First, I just want you to have a self-care plan. Now, you may say, oh, Dr. Geneva, here we go with the plan again. And right, for those of you who know me, who've heard me, one of the ways that I've been able to, get success in what I do to live this vibrant life that I'm living is I got a plan. So I believe in making a plan for most things. Okay. Now, even with my plan, though, I'll be doing that flexibility. Okay. But having a plan, is something that I do. So having a self-care plan is important. Now, in your self-care plan, what I'm talking about is a way to schedule, be intentional about the constant repetition of small acts of love and kindness to yourself. That's all I'm talking about. Little bitty things that you can do every day to be kind to you, to be your best friend to you, to show your love for yourself. And that's what we're talking about in this February, which is Valentine's Day and Black History Month. What a perfect time to show love for yourself. Secondly, as a tip, get a great morning routine. My best morning routine is where I hydrate and breathe. So I have a pitcher of water right beside my bedside, right there on my dresser, and a pitcher of water in a glass. And so one of the first things that I do when I get up is to drink some water, keep myself hydrated, and hydrate, of course, throughout the day, but start with that first glass of water, right there. And then to breathe, to just, take a few minutes. And it doesn't take much time. When I'm talking about, take you 2-3 minutes at most, but take time to breathe, do 10 breaths. But whatever you do, if it's making your bed, if it's working out, have a great morning routine for you. This will help put yourself first. Another tip, switch everything off for an hour. Oh my gosh, am I creating heresy by saying that? So you turn off your phone, you turn off the TV, you turn off everything and sit in silence. Now, you may not be able to do it for an hour. Okay, can you try 15 minutes maybe? And then you can graduate to 30 minutes. But, the aura that comes in, the energy that comes in, the positiveness that surrounds you when you switch off everything that's a distraction and just sit with yourself for 15 minutes. So just switch everything off. Try it today, okay? And another tip is to get positive strokes from friends and family. Okay, so there are people out there who love you, who do, who are in your corner. Why not call up your best friend and say, my best friend is Sandy. And I do this with her, particularly if I'm feeling down or I haven't given myself the kind of love I should have in a few days or so. I'll call her and I'll say, Sandy, tell me a couple of things that you like about me. Tell me, Sandy, some things that I'm good at. And of course, you're going to do this with somebody who loves you, who thinks about you. I used to do this with my mom all the time. And I would just, stop in the middle of me complaining or crying or whatever I was doing. I'd say, Mom, tell me what's good about me or what you really like. And these are positive. And of course, she would always do that. Oh my goodness, I can still hear her in my head and all the goodness she used to give to me. And so this technique, this tip of getting into the habit of asking others for positive strokes for you is cool, because you know what? You asked all the time by other people to give positive strokes to them. So you just taking it for yourself. And then finally, let me give you this tip about find or remember your favorite childhood food or game and play it or eat it. Okay. So my favorite childhood food was potato chips. Okay. So I ain't getting into, potato chips are too salty. It's processed food, the trans fat, you shouldn't be eating it. I'm going to put that aside for the moment. Okay. And I'm going to put aside for this whole thing about, you shouldn't eat when you don't fit. I'm putting all that aside for just a moment. But they used to call me the potato chip kid growing up. And my happy time was when my grandpa, because I lived with all my relatives at a young age, my grandmother, my grandfather, the brothers and sisters of my dad, and this big house. And they would, the happy time was when they would give me, check this, like a nickel, to run across the street to the family, to the grocery store right there at the corner, mom and pop store, and get a bag of chips. Okay. So sometimes when I want to put my self first, I just get a bag of chips. I only do it once and I sit. It's okay. Or a game. Oh my gosh. I used to love playing hopscotch. That was my game. Or, another game I just thought about. I used to love to play Slinky. This is the original Slinky, and this sits on my desk, and I play with that. And I just take 5 or 10 minutes and play with my Slinky. Why not? Again, because it's all good. I'm putting myself first. So I just enjoyed having this conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, love yourself. We're talking about this in this February month of just love, love, love. whether you're celebrating Black history, where we see African Americans who made such contributions because they loved this country, because they loved themselves and they loved their people and they wanted to make an impact. So we celebrate Black History Month for that love that was passed down to us through the generations. And we celebrate it because it's Valentine's Day and it's a time to love. So you can also get and capture all that great love in my I Love Myself journal, which you can get on Amazon. I never remember the exact price of it, but it's somewhere between $6 and $7, etc. Hey, Otha. Oh, Otha says there's no magic pill. Find your happy place and forget all the negativity. Absolutely. I believe that. Find it. You can find it in here. You find it for yourself. That's right. Let's forget that negativity. And Rolanda, talking to you direct. Rolanda says she felt like I was talking to her directly. Well, I am. I am. And that's why I'm so glad you've joined me and want to continue to support and inspire and teach what I've learned. Because for me, that's what it's all about. That's what I do, to share what I've learned, and so many lessons, so many mistakes. But in those mistakes are lessons. And one of the things, again, that I thought would be so good to talk about is how you can drink while you pour. That in fact, you can continue to serve and contribute and be the best that you can and replenish yourself. It's not an either or proposition. You owe it to yourself to be the best that you can be by replenishing and renewing yourself while giving and contributing to others. Love you. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining, and everyone who's joined. If you like this conversation, this topic, please let me know in the comments. We can talk about so many things. Thanks. See you soon. Live vibrantly.